Hi guys, I'm back. We're still in the middle of moving, but all my electronics and 3D printers and everything are back in my house, in the new house. And I've got enough here that I can continue on with the Animatronic eyeball demo unit. And I thought we'd do the next step tonight. We'll work on doing the input devices and putting them together. Tonight, what we're gonna do, we're gonna need a couple parts. So in the last week, I've released the STL files for all the 3D printed parts you should need to make this animatronic project. So I'll link to those down below and you can go print those out if you'd like. So for today, we're just gonna need the input devices, so the eyelid mechanism and your eyeball mechanism. We'll go through those. Things you'll need tonight. You'll need 3 10K adjustable pots from Adafruit. I'll put a link in the bottom. They look like that. All right. So you need 3 of those. Heat shrink tubing, very recommended. 22, 24 gauge wire, preferably 3 colors so you can tell the difference between each one when you finish. You'll need a soldering iron and some solder. You'll need wire strippers, and I recommend this highly. A set of fine drill bits of all different sizes. This is for making sure that press fits are press fits and not clearance fits from 3D prints. You can ream them out to the size you want. This I got from Harbor Freight, and you get like 120 drill bits for, I think it was like $39. I'll link to that down below. They're not fancy drill bits. I only use them for plastic, but they work great for 3D prints, and I recommend them highly to have a set, especially if you gotta do press fits or clearance fits or anything like that, or anything with holes basically. Good set to have, so I'll link to that below. Let's get started. Step 1, guys, for purposes of saving material, since I already have one of these, I've got 3 different color 24 gauge wire. 24? Yeah, I believe so. And I'm going to cut these fairly short just to save material for myself. But remember, these wires are going to connect from your microcontroller to your joystick and your microcontroller to your eyelid mechanism. So you probably want to have the wires, 2 feet long or so. Up to you, but make sure you don't leave them too short. So for purposes here, I'm going to cut off about 12 inches here, and we'll use that for demonstration purposes. So cut those off. What you'll notice is you want to do something with these wires so they don't all get tangled. Let's look at a quick tip on how to do that. So you may know this, but when you got a bundle of wires, what's the easiest way to make sure that they don't get all tangled? Why not? Well, one way to do that is take all 3 wires, line them all up, and put them in a vise. Okay, tighten that down. And if you have, sitting around your house, cordless drill. Hopefully you have one of these. You don't have to, again, not required, but nice to have. Take the wires, straighten them out, stick the wires at the end of the chuck, and tighten them down. Okay, and what you can do is start turning, and then open the chuck. You've got yourself a wire bundle. Now you're not going to get your wires all tangled. Very simple, easy to do, no zip ties, no other things. I recommend this highly when you're making wire cables that need to go to animatronics, any kind of exterior control, and you need multiple wires. This is a great way to go. So now we've got our wire bundle. They may not be quite even, so you can go take your flush cutters on the end here and make them flush. That. And then take your wire strippers and maybe take off about 1 centimeter on the end. You can always cut them shorter. So now we have our wiring harness. Now keep in mind, guys, for the purposes of this project, we're going to make 3 wiring harnesses just like this. I'm only going to make 1, but I'll remind you where you need to use the other ones. But you're going to need to make 3 of these. Okay, the next step is to tin the wires. Now what is tinning if you don't know? Well, these are braided wires here. They're stranded, meaning they're made up of multiple little pieces of metal strip. And we need to go solder the ends of these so that they become a solid piece. So to do that, use your fingers and twist the ends. You can see how they're fraying already. So we want to bring them together, twist them together, and let's tin the wires. Okay, so we got our soldering iron hot, we got our solder here and our wires. You want to make sure that you're melting solder, you want to make sure it's good and hot, which we're good. So hold the soldering iron up to the wire and add solder until it flows down. Take your soldering iron off. Repeat for the other two. And now they're all a single piece. Repeat this step for the other side of the wires. I won't show that here, but you should do 6 for each wire bundle. The next step is we want to take this 10K resistor and connect it to this wiring bundle that we made. My suggestion is, well, the sweeping voltage is the middle pin. So you want ground, you want 5 volts or 3.3 volts depending on what Arduino you're running, and the middle wire is your signal wire, which is going to be reading your analog output here. It's going to be read into your microcontroller. So what I recommend is make the black wire ground, the red wire 5 volts or 3.3 volts, and white is your signal wire. So we're going to put black on one side, red on the other, and white in the middle, which is your sweeping surface. But before we do that, to do things right, I mean, you could solder this on here and call it a day, but to do things right, we want to strain relieve them and keep them isolated from each other. In order to do that, we're going to take some shrink tubing and we're going to add that to the mix here. So we're going to take a single piece of shrink tubing. We got 3 wires, so we'll cut this into thirds. Okay, so you got 3 pieces of shrink tubing. We're going to slide those onto each of the wires. You should do this first before you solder anything, or else you're going to have to desolder everything. And one little thing to note, you want to move these down away from the heat, because if they're too close while you're soldering, they'll shrink up before you can slide them into position. So now let's solder this to the 10K pot. For the eyelid mechanism, what you're going to need one of your wiring harnesses you made. The 10K pot also comes with a washer and a nut. You'll need those. And you'll need your 2 3D printed parts that hopefully you printed earlier. So what you'll find, because of the way you print these things, is that the holes aren't normally round and we need to work on some stuff here to make things fit. So what you'll do is you'll take your drill bits here, and what we want to check is you take these 2 pieces. There's no way that you can see it. Okay, you take these 2 pieces, and what we want is for these 2 to slide together like that. Now this is pretty tight. I'm going to go back and ream these out just a little bit, and I'll let you know what size drill bit I used. So hang on. Let's see if those fit together better. Oh yeah, there we go. Not too loose, not too tight. So that drill bit, at least for mine, your results may vary. So I always start with a small drill bit and work my way up until I get it where I want it. Looks to be about 12.62 millimeters, or for those of you on my side of the pond, 0.497. So maybe not be what you need, but that should be close. You've got a hole and a tab. If you look at the pot, you've got your sweeper pot there, and you've got a tab to keep it from rotating. We want to make sure that that can fit in here. So the part that needs to fit through the pot diameter is 6.75 millimeters in diameter. So get yourself a 6.75 millimeter drill bit and ream it out to that size. Okay, I have a 6.8 millimeter drill bit. That's about as close as I have. We'll go in here, and in this end hole here, we'll just ream that out by hand. And if that was the right size, this should slide right in. Still a little tight. I'm going to go one size bigger. Try that. There we go. Okay, so the pot sits in there like that. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take the washer, put that on the pot sweeper, so you can see that. So you got the washer in there. Okay. Take the nut, put that over the top of the sweeper, like that. All right, and we're gonna spin that and tighten that down. Okay, and because of the tab, this will not rotate. Okay. That's locked in nicely. And so what we're going to do next is we need to make sure that, here's a sample pot. We're going to take this other piece and we're going to press this into this hole. Obviously this hole is too small again because 3D printing, it's not going to be exactly what you need. The diameter that we're pressing onto is 5.85. So we'll grab a drill bit that's around 5.85. We'll drill this out by hand, just ream it out. Okay. All right, I wound up using a 5.8, which because of how ABS expands when you ream it out and then contracts back on itself, you can press it in and it stays, which is what you're trying to get on this, okay? So that's my sample piece. So on this piece then, we've got this already in position, your pot's already locked in. We're gonna grab our other piece, and just like we did earlier, we're gonna put them together, one through this hole, one through the bottom hole, and then you're gonna press these two together the best you can. And the press keeps the two locked together. And I just remembered something really important I can tell you guys. One thing you need to remember is before you press it on, which I just forgot, make sure that the pot is halfway between. So the pot goes and rotates from one side, rotated all the way to the other side. You want to make sure that it's somewhere in the middle before you do the press. So I've got it, let's see, so it looks like it rotates almost 360 degrees. So somewhere halfway-ish. Okay, make sure it's positioned halfway, then go press your pieces together. There you go. And now, you've got yourself an eyelid mechanism. Step one complete. On to the eyeball mechanism. It's time for the eyeball control mechanism. And in order to do that, you need some more 3D prints. You need 2 more 10K pots. Now remember what I said earlier, these 10K pots in your case would be already have wiring harnesses connected to them. So you do that already. So you have 2 wiring harnesses with 10K pots on them. You have your 2 nuts, 2 washers that come with them. And then you're gonna have a piece that looks like that. Your joystick, your base, cover, and 2 locking mechanisms. This is going to look eerily familiar to the eyelid mechanism. What we're going to do is we're going to build the joystick first. So in order to do that, again, you'll see that you have a hole and a slot. You need to ream this out so that your 10K pot can slide in and press in. Obviously it doesn't here. I need to ream it out. I'll be back in a second. All right, I have a 6.85 drill bit. We'll drill out that hole. See if that fits. Again, remember, start small, work your way up. I have one size too small. 6.9. Go in here. Bring this out. And now, fits perfectly. So it should sit just like that. Okay, the next part is, notice this joystick has a pin on the end. We want to make sure that that pin can fit in that hole, which is on the opposite side. I think I've already reamed this one out, which I have. So your pin should be able to sit in there. It shouldn't be a press fit, it should be just a tight clearance, okay? So take a drill bit, drill that out to the size you need to make that hole work for your 3D print. When we're done, we're gonna have a press fit for the 10K pot into this hole here and into this hole in the joystick. So like you did in the eyeball mechanism or eyelid mechanism earlier, you're going to use a drill and drill those out so that you have a tight press fit for the tip of this into here. So I've already drilled out this one. It should be able to press in tightly and stay. So that's one. You need to do it again for that joystick. We've got our 10K pot that can be slid in to the base here. What we're going to do is we're going to go put on the washer that came with the 10K pot. Put that over the sweeper like that. Take the nut. It's going to be a tight fit. You may need to use pliers to get it in there. Go. And don't tighten it down yet. Okay, we just want to get those lined up. Then we're going to take the joystick, and the joystick with the pin that way is going to go inside. You can lower this 10K pot down. You want to get it so it's kind of like that. Slide your joystick in, put it in the hole up on top. There you go. So it's sitting like that. And then go press your 10K pot into the joystick. But remember, you want to make sure that the sweeper is in the middle. It's not biased to one side or the other, so the joystick can sweep both ways without hitting any end stops in the resistor. So just make sure that the resistor is somewhere in the middle. And then when you're sure that the resistor is in the middle, go ahead and press the two together. And your key should line up with the hole in there. And then you can go in there and tighten the nut down. Okay, so if you did it right and you didn't hit the end stop, the joystick should be able to move both directions without hitting a stop. Okay, that's what it looks like on the inside. Okay. Now to test your printer tolerance, you've got your cap, which is nothing more than a vanity cover, so you don't really need it, but you can try. That goes over the top. Now notice the joystick is biased towards the bottom side, so your slot needs to be biased towards the bottom side. Put those together, and if your printer's about right, it should just snap on. You can glue it, you can do whatever you want, but there's your left-right joystick right there. Ooh. Okay, on to the next part. With the left-right mechanism done, we're going to make the up-down mechanism. So again, reminder, make sure you ream this hole out so that you can take your resistor, your 10K pot, and it should sit in there like that. Nice and loose, nice clearance fit. Remember, this third pot should have a wiring harness attached to it already that you should have already done in step one. We're going to put in your 10K pot, put on your washer. Again, you're noticing a trend. Put on your nut. Okay, don't tighten it down yet. Line up your tab with the slot up here. You're going to take your up-down mechanism, slide it into the slot, which it should fit nicely. And when you get that, go ahead and press that pot into the end. And it should fit nicely. And my tab should line up. Yep. Okay, so it should look like that. And go ahead and tighten down that nut that you put in there. Okay, so again, remember when you press this pot, and make sure the pot's not biased to one side or the other, it's somewhere in the middle so that you can get full movement of this joystick and not have it hit anything and hit a stop. So make sure it's in the middle. Last step, lock mechanisms. It's not really a mechanism. So the way these work is just to keep everything seated nicely. These should fit, get that in there. They should fit in there. So that's going to sit like that. This piece is going to sit on the other side. And what you do is just use some silicone adhesive and just glue those into the side. That just keeps this from popping up. So you can glue those on your own time. I like to use silicone because it's permanent, semi-permanent, so if you ever have to fix something, you can take it apart. So you glue those together, and there you go. There's your up-down joystick. Okay. Get up, down, and it should be free to move, guys. So because it's 3D printing, you may have to go in there and shave a little bit off to loosen things up. I won't do that here, but you know what to do. So it should go up, down, it should go left, right. And if you notice here, I put a little handy dandy loop up here. So for your wiring harnesses that'll come off here, you can have them go past here and use a zip tie to hold these down, to hold the wires from flopping all over the place. So there is your eyeball mechanism. There's your eyelid mechanism. You have both your mechanical inputs ready to go for your animatronics. This can be used for eyelids, mouths. I use it for eyebrows, and I use these for eyeballs. I use them for necks, up, down, left, anything that needs an up, down, left, right movement. So now you have your two animatronic inputs. In the next part, what we're going to do is probably go assemble the eyeball animatronic itself. In a couple days, I'll put that together and we'll put that out there for you guys to see. Last step, which I'm working on in the background, is getting the code out to you guys. That's all commented, so it should be fairly easy to load, and you should have a completed mechanism. So tune in next time when we go put together the eyeball animatronic itself with the servos. Thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe below, follow along. Glad to be back. Hopefully it won't be as long as last time. Stay tuned.